Let me ask you something honest. How many times have you told yourself, okay, this weekend I'm going to start studying for PMP? And then the weekend comes, you open a book, read 3 pages, feel completely overwhelmed, close it, and tell yourself you will start properly next week. Next week becomes next month. Next month becomes I will do it after the holidays. Sound familiar? Here is the truth nobody tells you. The reason most people never finish studying for PMP is not because they are not smart enough or not experienced enough. It is because they never had a real plan. They had good intentions but not a plan. Today, that changes. I am going to give you a complete week by week study plan for the PMP exam, built specifically for someone with a full time job, a real life, unlimited hours in the day. And because PMBOK 8 just dropped in November 2025, with the updated exam launching July 2026, I'm going to tell you exactly how that affects your preparation depending on when you plan to write the exam. No overwhelm, no confusion, just a clear plan you can actually follow. I'm Harshita, PMP and CAPM certified based in Calgary. I passed my PMP while working full time. I know what it feels like to come home after a 9 hour day, make dinner, put the kids to bed, and then try to sit down and study when your brain is already running on empty. So, this plan was built in that reality, not in a perfect world where you have 8 hours a day to study. So, let's get into it. Before you open a single study guide or watch a single video, go to pmi.org and download one free document. It is called the Exam Content Outline. It is literally the blueprint of the PMP exam. It tells you exactly what topics are tested, how they are grouped, and how much of the exam each section represents. Most candidates never read it. They just start studying and hope they covered the right things. That is like driving to a destination without knowing the address. So please read the exam content outline first. Understand the 3 domains: people, process, and business environment. Understand roughly how much of the exam each one carries. And then everything else you study will have a context and a purpose. That one step alone puts you ahead of most candidates before you have studied a single thing. Okay, I need to talk about this because right now in early 2026, there is a lot of confusion and I want to clear it up for you completely. PMI released PMBOK 8 in November 2025. Big changes, new structure, new focus areas. AI in project management is now officially part of the framework. And the updated PMP exam based on PMBOK 8 launches on July 9, 2026. So here is the question everyone is asking right now. Should I study the old content or the new content? Here is my honest answer. If you can realistically be exam ready within the next few months, right before July 9. Not because the new exam is harder, but because right now, the study materials for the updated exam are still catching up. The best prep courses, practice question banks, and study guides aligned with the new exam will not be fully available until later in 2026. If you are starting completely from scratch today and need 4 to 6 months of preparation, plan for the new exam from the very beginning. Embrace PMBOK 8 and build your study plan around it. Either way, this plan works for both situations. I will tell you exactly where things differ as we go through each week. The most important thing is that you know which exam you are writing and that your study materials match that version. Okay, now let's talk about the actual plan. I know 1 hour sounds small, but here is the thing about studying after work. One focused hour beats 3 distracted hours every single time. Put your phone in another room. Close your email. Tell your family this 1 hour is mine. In weeks 1 and 2, you are not trying to learn everything. You are just getting familiar with the landscape. Start with PMBOK 8. If you are a PMI member, it is free to download from pmi.org, and honestly, this alone saves you $60 to $80. Understand the new structure: 6 core principles, 7 performance domains, 5 focus areas with 40 processes. Now, here is something I want to highlight because this trips people up. PMBOK 8 made some significant structural changes compared to what you might have seen in older study materials. Governance is now a domain, it replaced integration. Finance replaced cost, and quality, communications, and procurement are no longer separate standalone domains. They are woven into the other domains instead. So, if you pick up a study guide that still shows the old 10 knowledge areas from PMBOK 6, put it down. It is outdated and studying from it will actively work against you. In these 2 weeks, also try to enroll in a structured preparation course. Andrew Ramdale or Joseph Philip on Udemy is still one of the most highly recommended instructors in the PMP community, and their courses regularly goes on sale for $15 to $20. You do not need to finish it in 2 weeks. Just get started and build the habit. Here is a stat that surprises most people. The people domain covers approximately 42% of the current PMP exam, nearly half. And yet, most technical project managers spend maybe 20% of their study time on it because it feels soft, fuzzy, less like real project management and more like a conversation about feelings. And that mismatch between where the exam weight is and where candidates focus is one of the biggest reason experienced professionals fail. So let me tell you what the people domain actually covers. It covers how you lead a team through conflict, how you motivate someone who has completely checked out, how you handle a team member who is talented but difficult, how you communicate with a sponsor who keeps changing their mind, how you build a psychological safety so your team actually tells you about the problems before they explode. Does any of that sound like soft skills to you? That is every difficult Tuesday at work. The specific things to focus on in weeks 3 and 4, servant leadership, and what it actually looks like in practice, not the definition, the behavior. Conflict resolution approaches. When do you force a resolution versus when do you let the team work it out themselves? The Tuckman model, forming, storming, norming, performing. Understand not what just the stages are, but what a project manager should be doing in each one. Emotional intelligence, self awareness, self regulation, empathy, social skills. The exam loves scenarios questions about this. Motivational theories, Maslow's hierarchy, Heisenberg's two-factor theory, McGregor's theory X and Y. Do not just memorize them. Understand what each one implies about how you should treat your team. For every concept in this domain, ask yourself one question. What does this look like on a real project? Because the exam will never ask you to define servant leadership. It will give you a scenario where a team member is struggling and ask what a servant leader would do. The definition gets you nowhere. The understanding gets you the point. This is the domain most people feel most comfortable with. And it is also the domain where most people make the mistake of studying only predictive waterfall project management. The process domain covers about 50% of the current exam. And a significant portion of that 50% is now agile, scrum, and hybrid approaches. PMBOK 8 has leaned even harder into this direction. The emphasis has shifted from following a rigid, defined process to tailoring the right approach for the right project. So let me be clear. If you cannot explain the difference between a sprint and a phase, study it. If you cannot explain what a product backlog is, study it. If you do not know what happens in a sprint retrospective, study it. These are not optional extras anymore. They are core exam content. In weeks 5 and 6, focus on the 5 focus areas in PMBOK 8: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing, and how the 40 processes sit within them. Agile ceremonies, sprint planning, daily stand up, sprint review, retrospective, what happens in each one and why. Hybrid approaches. When does a project call for predictive? When does it call for agile? And when does it call for a mix of both? Value delivery. This is the lens PMBOK 8 puts on everything. Every process, every decision, every action should ultimately be about delivering value to stakeholders. If a practice question gives you four options and you are not sure which is right, pick the one that delivers the most value. That single principle will rescue you on more questions than you can imagine. On the current exam, the business environment domains is about 8% of questions. On the updated exam launching July 2026, it jumps to 26%. So if you are writing before July, give this domain moderate but focused attention. If you are writing after July, treat it with the same seriousness as the other two domains. What does this domain cover? It covers the big picture. How does your project connect to the organization's strategy? How do you know if your project actually delivered value, not just output? What happens when organizational change is required for the project to succeed? And two topics that PMBOK 8 introduces more formally than ever before. Sustainability. Projects are now expected to consider environmental and social impact alongside traditional success criteria. This is not just a nice to have, it is in the exam. Artificial intelligence. Yes, really, PMBOK 8 includes guidance on how AI tools can support project management. The exam will test your awareness of how technology is changing the way projects are planned and delivered. You do not need to be a data scientist to answer these questions. You just need to understand the principle. AI and technology are tools that help project managers make better decisions faster. The human judgment and leadership still sits with you. Close your books. From week 9 onwards, you are only doing practice questions. Your target is 200 practice questions per day across these 2 weeks. I know that sounds like a lot, but here is why it matters. The PMP exam is 230 questions in 230 minutes. You need your brain to be in a rhythm where reading a scenario, eliminating wrong options, and choosing the best answer feels almost automatic. That rhythm only comes from repetition. After every wrong answer, do not just highlight it and move on. Stop. Read the explanation, understand the principles behind the correct answer. Ask yourself, what was I thinking that led me to the wrong choice? Most wrong answers come from one of three patterns. You choose what you would do in real life instead of what PMI says you to do. You choose the most detailed or complex option instead of the most value driven one. Or you rushed and missed a keyword in that scenario, like what should the project manager do first? First is one of the most important words on the PMP exam. It usually means there are two or more correct answers, and you need to identify the one that comes first in the logical sequence. Train yourself to slow down and read every question word for word. Use PMI Study Hall for your practice questions. It is the most closely aligned with the real exam style, and it gives you performance analytics by domain, so you can see exactly where your weak spots are. Do not cram. I know every instinct is telling you to study harder in this final week. Do the opposite. Your brain needs rest more than it needs new information right now at this stage. Do a light review of your two weakest areas, no more than 30 minutes each day. Do 50 practice questions per day just to stay sharp, not to learn new things. Sort out your exam day logistics. If you are writing at a Pearson View Testing Center in Calgary, drive past it the week before so you know exactly where it is and where to park. The last thing you want on exam morning is a stress about finding the building. Pack your ID the night before. Set 2 alarms and sleep properly for at least 3 nights before the exam. I cannot stress this enough. A well rested brain on exam day is worth more than 3 extra hours of studying the night before. Your preparation is done. Trust it. 11 weeks, 1 hour a day, a real plan that works around a real life. Week 1 and 2, Foundation and PMBOK 8 structure. Weeks 3 and 4, the people domain. Nearly half of your exam, give it the respect it actually deserves. Week 5 and 6, process domain with equal attention to agile, scrum, and hybrid. Week 7 and 8, business environment, sustainability, and AI in project management. Weeks 9 and 10, only practice questions, 200 a day. Understand every wrong answer. Week 11, rest, light review, exam logistics. Trust your preparation. And through all 11 weeks, 1 hour a day, every day. Not perfect hours, just consistent ones. Because the candidates who pass PMP are not always the most experienced or the most technical, they are the most consistent. If this plan gave you the clarity you needed, subscribe. Next week, I am breaking down the top mistakes PMP candidates make. And I promise you, at least 3 of them will make you go, oh no, I was doing that. I'm Harshita, PMP and CAPM certified in Calgary. See you in the next one.